It's Friday, March 21st, 2025. Welcome to your new Backcountry Snowpack summary brought to you by North Shore Rescue. Another week, another meter. It snowed a ton again this week, but with temperatures staying nice and mild, not too warm, but fairly consistent, that snow just piled up and kept on stabilizing. So we did have a little bit of avalanche activity, generally within the layer that fell in the last 24 hours or so. Typically nothing bigger than size 1, and everything is tightening fairly nicely. Now, this is true for the North Shore. However, when you're moving up the sea to sky corridor, starting at around the Squamish and definitely heading into over Whistler area, there are some pretty concerning reports of very large avalanches. There was also some very concerning practices. Ski cutting in a very busy and popular backcountry skiing area without knowing if there are people below you is very serious negligence, and it will end up killing people. I know that it's difficult when it's busy out there and there's only so much terrain to spread out, but the fact remained that either cutting a cornice or willfully triggering an avalanche without having full control of what's happening below and whether there's people there or not is just not acceptable. The skiing has been pretty good on the North Shore this week. It still is, probably still is for one more day. And then on Sunday, it looks like we have a system moving in from the southwest and probably rising freezing level and heavy precipitation. So if you want to know what this means for your weekend plans, stick around for the snowpack discussion. So we're on a west aspect at 1,150 meters. So we got a pretty decent amount again this week. With last weekend we got about 30 centimeters, and then Wednesday to Thursday we got another 40. Last night we got about 25 centimeters, and it's been snowing on and off all week. And despite that, for the North Shore anyways, the avalanche activity has remained fairly under control. We were getting like small size 1 generally in the snow that just fell within the last 24 to 48 hours, not propagating super well, with the occasional anomaly. So at one point, completely unexpected, we had a remote trigger from probably around 10 meters away that went like 30 centimeters deep, 35 meters wide, and that came as a surprise. Just so you always remember that whenever you think you have a pretty good handle on things, the snowpack is there to kind of put you back in your place and let you know that you don't really understand everything. But for the most part, we have very well settled snow traveling around today, very little signs of instability. One of the things that pops out a little bit more is that layer of graupel that is, probably around 45 centimeters deep. These graupels tend to happen at the tail end of the storm when we have the unsettled post-frontal air that moves in. We have these big mushroom clouds, and they look a little bit like ball bearing. They do tend to stabilize reasonably well, but this is pretty much the only thing that we can get to react on snowpack test, and it is producing resistant result. So for the most part, even though over the last 2 weeks we got tons of snow, the temperatures remain fairly constant, and the snow has settled really quite nicely. Of course, yesterday and earlier this week, those two storms were accompanied with very strong winds as well, mostly from the southeast. So there's maybe uneven distribution of that new snow. But as of today, on Friday, traveling around, very little signs of instability, still treating it with a fair bit of caution because it's a lot of snow that happened reasonably quickly, but there's a lot of things that are in place here to make sure that this snow actually follows its typical coastal pattern of stabilizing really quite rapidly. So what does this mean for the weekend? It does look like after these little flurries today, we are getting a dry Saturday, and then unfortunately we have a pretty significant system moving in on Sunday. And it does look like it's coming from the southwest, so it will probably start as snow, and then the freezing levels shoot up to about Yeah, last I looked, about maybe 2,000 meters, which means that we will get rain all the way to mountaintop. And this, of course, is going to put a pretty significant amount of stress on the snowpack. Now, we do have well settled snow. There's nothing that really stand out going, oh yeah, this is definitely going to slide when we add a bunch of rain to the equation. Maybe that layer of graupel here is more concerning. But for the most part, whenever we have a lot of new snow and then a sudden pretty heavy rain event, they're calling maybe for about 30 to 40 millimeters. We'll definitely want on Sunday to treat the conditions with a lot of extra caution as we start to see what that weight and what that rain does to the existing snowpack. That's all I got for this week. Stay safe this weekend, and we'll see you next week.